Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? 4 in a row, here we go, it is in the bag, signed, sealed and delivered, and the end of season pageantry is all now starting to begin with end of season awards for players, managers, goal of the season nominations and all that good stuff. And off the back of sealing the title and getting into that kind of party mode for celebrating the end of the season of progression that we've had this year, we have got the perfect match to just put the cherry on top of the cake to settle that last piece of unfinished business. We have got our final Glasgow derby of the season. We're going to Mordor to take on the Orcs. It's us versus the baddies, Rangers versus Celtic. And in the video today, we're going to be previewing what we should expect from the opposition coming into this game, because I think our main frustration as Celtic fans with these derbies so far this year is it felt like the games were ours to be won, and decisions that we'd made tactically or different other things we've covered on the channel. You can go and check it out if you want to recap it, but we could have easily avoided a lot of the pain that we've suffered in the derbies this season. Brendan Rodgers will not be happy with how blemished his record has been in this fixture as of this season, and will definitely want to right that wrong and balance the scales out for the season as we look to march on to another historic treble. At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section in this one, guys, and let me know what your thoughts and feelings are about the opposition that we have this game week. Are they in a good place to take us on? Are they still capable of that sucker punch kind of move that seems to be their absolute specialty? Or are we set up for a famous result? Look forward to catching your hot takes and thoughts and feelings in the comment section down below. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. And I think the best place to start off with this is the tail of the tape for Rangers. Their form under the current managerial department they currently have of Neil McCann, Barry Ferguson and Billy Dodds. They started off their managerial campaign with Rangers away to Kilmarnock, and this is a game that I tuned into. I don't watch many Rangers games that don't include Celtic, but I just did feel like this game was going to have a bit of drama, and it was going to be entertaining if nothing else. They huffed and they puffed and they clawed it back all the way at the end. You maybe remember they made the first half substitution for Insilla, and they just about fought it back. They followed that up with a 2-1 loss at Mordor to Motherwell, and this is a game where really both of their players, or two of their players, had egg on their face here. Cyril Dessers getting the goal and having an error led to goal himself, as well as the goalkeeper Jack Butland. They then followed that up, but with one of the most improbable results I think anyone's seen coming. They went away to Istanbul, they went away to Turkey, and they beat Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce 3-1. And if you remember this game, they actually had a fair amount of chances. They could have actually scored maybe an extra goal or two in this one. But one of the most striking things about this is that they completely changed their tactics. They'd completely changed their shape. They went to a back three. The front line is still kind of built the same way as what they've tried to do against us and in Europe previously. But the midfield and the fullback dynamic that they've kind of evolved here gave them an unexpected kind of play against Fenerbahce, and that maybe gave them a wee bit of a surprise kind of sucker punch element like we mentioned before. But it actually helped them get more out of their better players, which you've got to tip your cap to when that happens. Jack Butland there with a decent performance before they kind of won but lost at their place, losing 2-0 on the night to Fenerbahce. And again, the performances here weren't really the same high level, but the same tactics, the same shape. Now, between these two European games, they had a week off because they weren't in the Scottish Cup, of course. We played Hibs in this time and we won 2-0, with, of course, us having the midweek off because we weren't in Europe. Where were we? No, we weren't at that point. And this is where I think the frustration kind of really hit for me in the derby sequences that we've had so far this year, because under Philip Clement's Rangers team, it looked like they'd found a wee kind of sneaky move to try on us in the cup, and then when we followed it up with the league, or whatever way it went, it was kind of the same strategy from Rangers, and we played it again the second time and acted as if we'd never knew they were going to do this. And it felt this way again when we took them on after they just played two legs against Fenerbahce quite successfully, obviously getting themselves through the tie ultimately. They came to Paradise, they played the same shape against us, and they narrowly get the 3-2 win here. Raskin played the best game of his life, and it was heartbreak from the bench with that Igaman right at the end. And losing at Paradise, and I don't know what it is, but my birthday's St Patrick's Day, so maybe I'm just extra aware of this, right? But derbies around St Patrick's Day, I've mixed emotions on them. They follow that up with a win. They go away to Dundee, who, don't forget, last time we went to Dens Park, it was like a 3-each draw, and it was actually quite a tight match. They fought back after, this was the game Simon Murray really ran the show. Dundee were 3-1 up, and Rangers brought it back, which, in different contexts and different seasons, sometimes those results can be seen as a positive, but firmly when you follow that up at home and lose 2-0 to Hibs, it very much just kind of shows the writing on the wall of the team being so fragile. But they then get back into Europe and they're playing Athletic Club of Bilbao, or Athletic Club de Bilbao. And at home, with 10 men, essentially, they managed to hang on to a 0-0 draw, with Liam Kelly being the surprise change. He comes into the net and plays the game of his life, probably saving a penalty, keeping the clean sheet against a top La Liga side in Europe. They then go to Pitaudry and they draw 2 each. Again, they're playing the same shape and formation. Another red card in the equation here, but they're starting to rotate players around because they're prioritising that Europa League run. And you can see here the depth in their squad is very shallow, and it's not, even their best 11 can be quite good when they're on form and everything, but the quality drop off is noticeable, let's just say. They go away to Bilbao and they play, when we look at the statistics for this, they actually play out their skin a little bit compared to the other performances that they've had. But Tavernier with a clearance off the line and Balogun with a last man tackle wasn't enough to save them, as Sanchez got a penalty in the first half and then Nico Williams put them to the sword to finish it off. 2-0 win. And then see, the weekend, I didn't even know they played. I did not hear anything about them at all after we obviously smashed Dundee United and went on to seal the title. But they played at the weekend and they drew with St Mirren 2 each. It must be said, Raskin had another great game by his standards, and by the league standards really. Diamande, again, another big game for him. But they drew 2 each with St Mirren. And again, away St Mirren is a fixture on this channel we do put value on for Celtic. It's always a tough trip. They're always a tough match. And not hugely surprising. One of the main things we can see when we look through the Rangers' development over this year is there is a huge tendency for them to, here they've got 62% possession against McInnes, where they've had to fight back and get the win. And if you watch this game, they did have a significant amount of ball as the game went on. But at home here to Motherwell, they've got a significant percentage of the ball, don't get the win. They go away to Fenerbahce, have none of the ball and get the win, and could have maybe scored another couple if you look at the shots on target, and if you go back and check the highlights for that, you'll see it yourself. And then again, I know they lost, but they did kind of win, didn't they? In a weird, just the two-legged situation of it, but again, no possession, and they just about managed to play the game that they'd planned to at the very least. When they come and play against us, again, they have got no possession at all whatsoever. The Dundee match where Simon Murray thought he was going to be the hero. Again, they've got a huge amount of possession here and they really struggled. They huffed and they puffed in this one. For their 3-1 down at the 62nd minute, you've got to say, like I said earlier, in different circumstances, in different contexts, these results can be seen as huge positives. But in the situation, it is damage limitation. It is SOS, all hands on deck efforts. And it was crushing for Dundee to drop the points there. The 2-0 victory for Hibs at Castle Grayskull, Mordor, whatever we're calling it. Again, Hibs only 28% possession. The more possession Rangers have, the more likely it is they're not going to get the result they want. 0-0 at home to Bilbao. Again, no possession. They get a positive result for there. They go away to Pitaudry. A bit of a different game, especially when you've got Barry Ferguson in the dugout. He knows the meaning of this game, and Aberdeen know the meaning of this game quite firmly as well, especially where their seasons went. Possession quite tight on that one. And this is a bit of an outlier, but away to Bilbao, of course it's do or die. It's a one-off game really in that tie at that point. And because they lost the first half and then lost the second, the possession, they didn't throw it away too quickly. They weren't just clearing the ball. They were trying to get on it a little bit more. Sadly for them, they didn't create much more than what they did. But a bit of an outlier, because against St Mirren, where they draw 2 each, is very similar to Aberdeen, where they dominate possession but not by enough to lose the game. I think if St Mirren let Rangers have maybe another 5, if Rangers got to 65% possession here, St Mirren could have won this game. And as you'll see and as you'll notice as we look through all of these results and the team that they've got, they did try and rotate in this Aberdeen fixture to make the Bilbao fixture a stronger team. And, the outlying game here where they actually did a bit better in possession on the ball, they played Diamande and Raskin in here together. And, they've obviously tried to beat Bilbao here. And I think this is something we're going to probably see come to play against us. Balogun's now fractured his cheekbone. If you listen to his quotes, I've not seen any official medical update, but I think it's unlikely he's going to start this game. If he is available for the match, it's maybe a guy on the bench. But the rest of the team, for the most part, I'm sure is available. On top of Yilmaz and Dujon Sterling being reportedly out for the rest of the season. Over the last 15 games, Neil McCann and Barry Ferguson have been in charge of Rangers for 11 games in all competitions. This is covering the last 15, so they get a little bit of the form that they had pre-interim management team that's came in here. Dessers is leading the charts with 6 goals. Czerny's got 5. Raskin and Hadji are on 3. And if we look at that, and it tails down to like Bajrami here down on 1, so there's not many goals in the last 15 matches between the Rangers attack here. Igaman, who's the second coming of Drogba, has got 2 goals in the last 15 games. In terms of assists, Raskin leads the way, Diamande closely behind him with Tavernier, and then there's a bunch of guys that have maybe just Butland's got an assist for them. Jesus. And as I went through the Rangers statistics, there wasn't too many things that jumped off the page, but when I tried to have a look at who was the main duel winners for them, one of the things that kind of did strike me is like Diamande and Hefty, their percentages are actually not too bad. Like, they're basically winning 65 out of 100 essentially is the way those numbers go, whereas with everyone else, like, they lose a lot more duels than they win for the most part. Looking at guys like Cherny here, Igamani, their forwards especially. Never mind Tavernier at right back, 59 duels won, 67 lost. Suter's got a wee bit of prominence in the air, it seems, here as well. But proper. Even Connor Barron there whenever he plays in midfield. So that kind of struck me that they don't really have anyone in their team that is like really dominating the opposition. In terms of big chances created over the last 15 games, Diamande is the number 1 guy from open play, whereas Tavernier, he does have open play crossing ability and everything, but that's mainly a set piece thing, I'm sure. And then between the likes of Igaman, Raskin, Dessers, they're obviously like kind of setting each other up for shots in and around the box. Attempted assists is a kind of set piece based thing for the most part, but even from open play, Raskin and Diamande are asked to do a lot of attacking work here for Rangers over the last 15 games. But then one of the funny stats I always love to check out is the statistical sitter, the big chance missed. And in the last 15 games, Cyril Dessers has clocked up 14, with Igaman and Raskin just in behind with 1 each. And doesn't that just tell you something? If I finished all those chances, I wouldn't be playing at Rangers, a guy once said. Now, we are just previewing the opposition on this one, but just because we've looked at that statistical page, we'll just compare and contrast the same numbers just for a wee bit of context here. So Celtic in the last 15 games, and they've played some of those games in Europe, a few more of ours are domestically. Daizen Maeda leading the way on 12 goals. Before then, we've got quite a similar, but still better, tail of the tape goal scoring wise than what they do, like 6-5-3-3-2-2, and then if you take Dyson away, 7-4-4-3-3-3-2-1. So we've got a lot more goals in us in the last 15 games. Make no mistake about it. Assists again as well is quite well spread out and in good volume. From Maeda, Hitate, and AJ leading the line for assists in the last 15 games. Closely behind them, Engels, Yang, even Kuhn, who's been out of favour, Jota, who's just showed up again. Greg Taylor, who's barely had minutes in the last 15 games compared to his usual. Even McCowan, super sub. If we look at the duels 1 column again as well, when you look across the Celtic players, for the most part, you get guys like Maeda here, who's a wee bit closer. But for the Hatate is upside down statistically. Kuhn is upside down as well. But for the rest of them, there's a good degree there of dual win success rate there. Big chances created doesn't seem that terribly different. It's mainly a set piece statistic, but again, from open play, we've got Hitate showing up prominently here, as well as super sub Luke McCowan, by the way. But as you can see, the main chances we get are made from the wide men, Maeda and Jota. Attempted assists, again, same sort of thing. And then the statistical sitter, the BCM, we've actually got them way more spread across the squad, which does surprise me. And again, like with Dessers, it is kind of like a volume kind of breeds that statistic. Like if you're the guy that's always getting shots away, you're just way more likely to catch them. But look at how many of our players are getting these sitter opportunities and not taking them. When you look at all the goals we've already put on the board and look at all the goals we've left on the table in the last 15 games, that is startling. 27 big chances missed in the last 15 games. Jesus. Right, if we finish up in goals for Rangers, I'm not really too sure how to think of this. Jack Butland has been kind of bombed out. I'm not too sure if there was an injury around it necessarily, but he was playing as well as he normally would, I suppose, but then he's just been on the bench for the last 4 games. And at first I thought with Liam Kelly coming in, the Rangers Scott Bain, I thought it might have been a bit of a play for, the Bilbao game to try and mix things up a little bit. But he's stayed in beyond that. And fair enough if it was maybe a tactic for, even those 3 games. But he retained his place against St Mirren, so I'm not too sure if he's nailed in as number 1 now. But when I went back and I looked at the Rangers statistics and double checked a few of them, Jack Butland in the last 15 games has had 106 missed passes, which he's going to be making a lot of clearances and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but I think that's probably the main difference between those two is Rangers, Neil McCann, really want to have Liam Kelly playing out from the back, and they've also seemed to do kind of well enough with that in the first game against Bilbao. So I'm a wee bit unclear with who I think they're going to go for ultimately. Hamza Igaman was the match winner last time around, and he's not really been all that great for all the hype that he's been getting this season. And again, when you look at his kind of tail of the tape across the season, the goals are few and far between. The minutes are quite loosely spread out. Is it a fitness thing? I'm not too sure. But a guy who's got pace and power, a guy who likes to run into space, certainly. And if he is going to be coming off the bench, which I think is probably most likely, is a guy that we'll need to be mindful of. And again, probably one of the main players that Rangers fans won't shut up about now is Nicholas Raskin, who, in all credit to him, is a pretty decent football player. And I thought this was a good move for Rangers when they initially signed him. It's obviously not been a great transfer overall, but he has been finding some good form. He's hit some really high scores this season. And similar to probably their next best player that they actually own, Diamande, both those guys in midfield have shown that both of them are pretty good at kind of everything that's needing to be done in midfield. They can be pretty good at defending. They're pretty good at moving between the lines. They can be pretty good at moving forward and attacking without being exceptional in any one area. And I think that pairing that we've seen of them two in the engine room against Bilbao is something we're going to see probably against us. But it's been the Nigerian Kevin Kyle, Cyril Dessers that's been leading the line for Rangers, scoring the majority of goals, as well as missing the majority of big chances over the last 15 games. And yeah, if he was scoring more goals, he wouldn't be at Rangers in his own words. But he's been a good enough striker for SPFL level, certainly. With moments, of course, the Fenerbahce game of showing that he can, come in clutch in a big game, as it were. But again, when you compare it to the goal scoring prowess that we've had so far this season, being outscored, although it's happened way too many times this season, it does feel quite hard to imagine. But you cannot take the opposition lightly, because Rangers' best player this season, and obviously became a bit of a villain in the last game. Again, very similar to last year, who their best player was. It was not a guy that they actually had on their books. And I think this may actually be a running trend for the last 3 years. So this year, Czerny's been their best player. He's on loan. Last season, their best player was Sima. He was on loan. And then Tillman. Was Tillman the same year as Sima, or was he before? Because he was probably their best player at that point. So yeah, it's a weird kind of trend they've got going on here, where they don't actually own good players. But Czerny's been pretty decent this year for them. He's been a pretty high quality player. And to be honest, I feel like as much as he became a bit of a villain or whatever, when they signed him, I thought, Jesus man, I'd have much rather we sign him. But a guy that had good potential to be exceptional in this division. Since the water scootering thing, his season has just died. He's actually done nothing. It's like his season is now peaked and it's on the way down. They rotated him to optimise him for the Bilbao matches. That's also not worked out too well, but I think he'll be fresh and fit and available to play us, certainly. And when he is fit and firing, he is like their main talisman, their main playmaker, their most consistent attacking output player this year so far. And, is like one of the best players in the league, make no mistake about it. Now, if we have a bash at projecting the Rangers team and how they're going to set up for this match, I think based on what we've kind of seen there across the fixtures and how things have progressed, Rangers don't want possession. They are going to have a much better time of actually winning this game if we have the ball for the most part, right? But they are at home and there is going to be a pressure on, this is Rangers and this is, we're going to give it to them and we're going to come and play and we're going to go toe-to-toe with them kind of style. And I think the ability of Kelly on the ball and the performances kind of shown in that Bilbao match is probably going to keep him in the net for this one, although I would not be one bit surprised if we did see Butland come in front of him. I think they're going to remain with a back three of Suter, Proper and Ciala. Now, I don't actually think they've got much room for manoeuvre on this one with the injuries to Balogun and Dujon Sterling. And this three's been playing together for the last little while, and they'll be fine if they're not tested. If we don't really ask questions and really put them into awkward positions, because Suter is going to be the one that's going to be happy to get in amongst it and bash himself around. Proper, as we've seen, can be gotten in these games, and then Silla had to get subbed off against Kelly, so he can be gotten at as well. With how we'll project the Celtic team and go through that in a bit more detail over the preview for the week. But I think it's going to be clear to see that Rangers are going to, they're not going to demand to play out from the back. They're not going to demand to have huge possession in this game, but they are going to give themselves the potential to try and work and play out from the back. Because I think the rest of the team will be quite easy to put together. This spot here, I'm not too clear on. This could be a number of players. This could either be Hadji. It maybe puts Barron in and moves Diamande up here, but I'm not too sure of that. I think because they're at home, they're going to try and do kind of what they went for against Bilbao. And they know with Czerny and Hadji in this position here, they're quite good at doing a job and a half in the press. And Diamande and Raskin always fancy going man for man against us anyway. So I think that's going to be a main kind of feature of, this kind of box shape in the middle. The same full-backs and centre-back setup that we've had already. with the target man here, with some subs on the bench that can kind of keep something resembling this as the game goes on. And really, like we've seen in the last couple of matches, this is going to be won in the middle of the pitch here. This is going to be the area of the game that really does decide how who's going to win it ultimately, because if Rangers have the ability to kind of stop us being comfortable in here and kind of building the web, then we need to play a lot quicker. And if we're playing a lot quicker, one of the things that can let us down a little bit is midfield support. We do great with having enough strikers in the box on pace for that sort of thing. But if there is like a tendency for them to be a bit deeper and a bit more compact, you need an extra bit of support to come in. And if the middle ground is quite contested and we're trying to come out from deep, midfield support is one thing I would be not cautious of, but one thing I'm mindful of going into this game that we're going to have to be on top game for. And equally for Rangers, I think they're going to see their main chance to goal is getting into these zones here, trying to nick balls and trying to get on the end of anything loose. And we've seen that over the last couple of games against them, that is a main currency that they are trying to kind of work on, is errors in this zone here and then just taking advantage of it. And beyond that, I'm not too sure there's much else that they can really pull out here in terms of rabbit at the hat. It's all going to be about stopping Celtic building up momentum, and then when the ball gets turned over, who's got the best space to run into, who can drive at the goal, and who can be in support to try and make it happen. Whereas with Celtic, it's much more of a case of we're going to want to build up the play when possible. And when we are working and playing up the lines, Hatate, Engels, Ida, I think, are three of the most crucial players here for being firm on the ball and making good decisions, because we know when we're going to be playing the ball out wide, regardless of who it is and everything else, it's always close to a coin toss of what's going to happen. Is the ball going to ultimately get put into the box or not? And we want to be clinical, of course, but generally we're going to need volume when we're playing in these zones here to get into this area of the box, whether it be with Kuhn or an overlap from a fullback, that sort of thing. But I do think for us, I've got this team here just as a kind of demo. But for the Celtic lineup, there's a lot of questions actually, like who will Rodgers actually go for because of the injury to Jota. The big question mark over left back, centre back maybe comes into this equation as well, because although Scales, we would fancy him toe to toe with any of these guys, is recovery pace something we want Austin Trusty for in this game. And then we've got the actual midfield dynamic to discuss as well. So there's actually a lot of unknowns still with the Celtic team that we'll preview later in the week as we get set for the big match this weekend. This has been the kind of opposition preview for what we should expect and what Celtic should be thinking about in terms of our match preparation coming into this game. On screen are now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you have enjoyed the video, please do hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Leave your score predictions, hot takes, personal views on the enemy this weekend in the comment section down below. Hail, hail, and Mon the Hoops.